Try something with me for a moment. Imagine a completely new color, one that's never been seen before. You can't, right? Not because you lack imagination or because you're not creative enough, but simply because it's not on the spectrum of things that your brain already knows. It turns out our cultural instincts work almost the exact same way. Hi, I'm Luke, and today I'm going to challenge you to rethink the shape of your possibilities. I lived in New York City for 9 years and have been living here in Spain for the past 5. I speak English at home, Spanish with my friends, and, well, French when I'm forced to. I began to feel that I didn't particularly fit in with either my American or my Spanish culture. And that's when I noticed something really weird. Every time I switched between the two of them, my normal started to change. Each one of us grows up inside a shape, a collection of assumptions that we've absorbed, of habits that we've gained, and values and beliefs that we've subconsciously created. We rarely notice this shape because, well, frankly, we rarely step outside of it. But the minute you do, through travel, friends, family, or even media, you begin to notice the invisible outlines of the shapes that you never knew you had. So today, I'm going to lead you through a progression of steps that you can notice in yourself and take when interacting with other cultures so that you can transform your own shape. To begin, culture is a mirror to see your shape. Then, culture is expansion to stretch your shape. And finally, culture is freedom to choose your shape. So, let's start with the mirror. Many of us don't realize how many of our behaviors are automatic settings, actions and reactions which we make completely subconsciously. Be that how you hear tone, how you interpret smiles, whether silence is comfortable or awkward, whether you greet somebody with a handshake, a kiss on each cheek, or a bow. For me, of all things, it was dinner. Yes, dinner. You see, in the States, eating dinner at 6 p.m. is considered normal. What everybody everywhere does. And then I came here, where dinner at 10 p.m. can sometimes even be considered early. That's when I took a step back. I said, wow, that wasn't biology, it was culture. Something I thought was universal turned out to just be a habit shaped by where I grew up. It turns out that culture quietly trains us to notice some things and completely ignore others. Psychologists have actually studied this. A researcher by the name of Richard Nisbett did a really interesting study where he showed an image to people from all around the world. And the results were really unexpected. You see, some people focused on the main object. Others focused on everything around it. The image didn't change. All that changed is what their cultures had trained them to notice. So when we step outside of our own cultural box into a new world, we begin to notice these invisible shapes that make us up through this contrast. That's the mirror effect. A place where this really began to stand out to me was when I was saying something to someone. I was being myself, honest, direct, straightforward. But the reaction seemed off, almost as if I had said something wrong. It was only later that I realized it wasn't what I said, it was how I had said it. You see, all my life, being direct and straightforward was normal, respectful even. But in that context, it came across as rude. And that's when I realized I wasn't just speaking as myself, I was speaking from a culture that I didn't even realize I had. Cultural exposure is fundamentally self-revelation. It shows us edges and corners of ourselves that we didn't even realize were there. So, now that the mirror's up, something interesting begins to happen. Our emotional and cognitive range begins to stretch. We'll encounter new possibilities for expressing ourselves, for communicating. Be that how you express happiness, sadness, anger, excitement, grief. For me, it was interruption. You see, in one of my cultures, interrupting somebody is extremely rude. It means you don't care about what they're saying. You don't think it's important or interesting. And you really just want to get on to the next thing. But in my other culture, it's the exact opposite. It means you are engaged, you're active. You think what they're saying is important, relevant. You really want to participate. Having been exposed to both of these completely contrasting ideas has allowed me to be more flexible, to change depending on the situation I'm in. Psychologists have actually studied this too. Researchers focusing on something called cultural frame switching realized that in people who frequently switch between cultures, they can almost completely shift their mindset and their personality depending on the situation they're in. That right there is expansion. It gives you more options for how to connect. Some cultures might let you feel things that you never even knew you could feel. Others might challenge emotional habits that you didn't even know you had. Maybe you apologize too quickly. Maybe you avoid conflict or jump straight into it. Maybe you forgive instantaneously or never. Maybe you interpret disagreement as disrespect. These habits only feel natural because they're familiar, but they're not the whole spectrum of being human. So, when we interact with other cultures, not as a tourist, but as a learner, our shape gains whole new dimensions. We'll gain new ways of expressing, of relating, of communicating that we're missing from our original blueprint. Your normal will start to expand. So, now comes the deepest part, freedom. Once you can see your shape and you can stretch your shape, you gain the power to choose your shape. Your identity stops being a closed container and becomes a toolkit. Researchers have actually studied this. A psychologist by the name of Herminia Ibarra studied something really interesting about identity and how people find out about it. It turns out that people don't discover their identity all at once. They build it up bit by bit by bit by bit by interacting with different cultures, different people, and going to new places. For me, living for most of my life in the US, achievement was everything. Grades, climbing the ladder, being better than the people to your left and right, and also in front and behind you. But then I came to Spain, where I realized that's not all that matters to me. Rest, fun, humor, games, my friends and family were also really important to me. And experiencing both of these different cultures allowed me to measure myself, not only based on what I achieve, but also by the kind of person I'm becoming. I got to choose my own shape. And so do you. You'll stop moving through life on inherited autopilot. You'll no longer only be formed by where you grew up, but also by the kind of person you want to become. Now, this doesn't mean abandoning your culture. No. It means that no culture, not even your own, gets to be the limits of your humanity. So, here's the essence of the idea. Each of us grows up into a shape, a collection of assumptions that we've absorbed, of values and beliefs that we have, and ideas that we created without even realizing we were creating anything. And by interacting with other cultures, contrast begins to reveal these invisible defaults, show us what's inherited and what's optional. And with that awareness comes something really powerful, the freedom to redesign parts of yourself that you never knew were negotiable. Your normal will begin to expand again. You see, many adults, when they encounter other cultures, have to question ideas and beliefs that they've had for decades. But teenagers are already in the middle of questioning everything anyway. You see, many people in general tend to spend their whole lives inside a shape that they never chose. But the instant you step outside of it, even for a second, you'll begin to realize you never were trapped. You were just following a script that you didn't even know you'd been given. So, here's my invitation to you. Pick a part of your shape, one that you've never seen, never noticed, never questioned, and ask yourself, why is this here? What are the alternatives? That single moment of self-awareness can open whole new worlds of what and who you can become. You'll get to choose your own shape. And who knows, maybe you'll even be able to create your own new color. Thank you.